In 1979, a Belgian civil engineer named Robert Bauval was waiting at Heathrow Airport in London for his plane to take off. He was going to Sudan to work on a project. While waiting for the plane, he was reading a book entitled The Mystery of the Sirius Star by a writer named Robert Temple. The book was talking about the beliefs of tribes in Africa, known as the Dogon tribes, who are currently in Mali. These tribes for thousands of years, every 50 years, perform rituals and dances similar to the movement of Sirius star in the sky. They believed that this ritual would lead to contact with the dead in heaven. The strange thing is that Sirius is a twin star, meaning two stars, not one star. Known as Sirius A and Sirius B. Sirius B revolves around a cycle every 50 years, which means that the Dogon tribe was aware of this secret. And she performs her rituals every 50 years, on this basis at the time when the cycle is completed. Sirius or Sirius is one of the brightest stars, and belongs to a group known as the Big Dog. The most strange thing is that Sirius B was only discovered 150 years ago. It cannot be seen with the naked eye, a telescope is required, and we did not know how to photograph it until 1970. Well, how did the Dogon know the movement of this star, which requires knowledge of astronomy? From tribes that show the characteristics of simplicity and primitiveness. Here, Robert Temple, the author of the book, expressed his belief that the astronomical information that the Dogon had was certainly inherited over thousands of years of the ancient Egyptians. Knowing the secret of the Sirius star must be searched for in the history of the ancient Egyptian civilization. This book prompted Robert Bauval on a research journey that took more than 10 years. Finally, he reached a theory that could rewrite all of Egyptian history. He concluded that Egypt, with its Nile and its pyramids, is the image of heaven on earth. Robert Bauval was born in Alexandria, and when he reached the age of 12, he left with his family to London, graduated as a civil engineer, and continued his life there. Like millions, the pyramids occupied part of his thinking. In the early 80s, he was on a visit to the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir Square. He saw a picture of the pyramids attached to the caution in the museum. Robert went and stopped in front of the picture and preferred to look at it. It was a picture taken from an airplane, showing the pyramids from an elevated perspective about 2 kilometers away. While in front of the painting, 3 questions came to his mind that he was confused about answering. The first question, why are there 3 pyramids? I mean, for example, why not 2, and why not 4 or 5? The answer known in the references is that the pyramids are the tombs of the kings of the 4th dynasty, which were adopted in the year 2500 BC, approximately. And this is 3 pyramids for kings Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure. But those who invite to ask, for example, that Khufu has a son named King Jidfar, built his pyramid in the Abu Ruwash area, approximately 10 kilometers away. Well, why didn't we build a pyramid with them on the Giza Plateau? Menkaure Barda has a son named King Shepseskh, who is also one of the kings of the 4th dynasty. Why didn't he build his tomb with them, and he built his tomb 18 kilometers away in Saqqara? The second question, why is the 3rd pyramid much smaller than the 1st and the 2nd? The height of the 3rd pyramid is 65 meters, and its size is almost half the size of the 1st and 2nd pyramids. The most popular explanation in the references is that King Menkaure built a smaller pyramid to reduce costs, but this explanation is also not convincing. Because the pyramid of Menkaure contains a large number of red granite stones, with huge sizes and weights of more than 10 tons. Red granite comes from 1,000 kilometers away from Aswan, cutting and transporting it is very difficult and expensive. I mean, I made a smaller pyramid, but with higher materials and a higher cost. Why not make it only from limestone, if you want to save on costs? The third and last question, and this was the most annoying question for Robert. Why is the 3rd pyramid not on the same axis as the 1st and 2nd pyramid? If we draw a line passing through the center of the 1st and 2nd pyramid, we will find it far from the 3rd. As if the 3rd pyramid was adopted, but not in its correct place. Some interpreted that this is due to the geology of the soil and that it was not suitable. And if the pyramid had been built on the same alignment, in this place, it would have cracked and collapsed. But no one provided strong evidence on this subject. I mean, for example, no one did a soil study and said that subsidence would have occurred if the pyramid had been built here. This was just a conclusion. These are the 3 points that confused Robert. Why 3 pyramids on the Giza Plateau? Why is the third pyramid of Menkaure small compared to the first and the second? Why is the third pyramid not on the same axis as the first and second pyramid? For years Robert puzzled over these questions and was convinced by the existing explanations. And he was in his decision as a civil engineer, sure that the design of the pyramids of these sizes and locations. I got it all at once depending on a unified design. I mean, all the pyramids were drawn on one board at the same time. It was not a king who built it, and then the next king came and said, I will build a pyramid next to my father, the king, and so on, not all at the same time. Like, for example, when you design a residential city. So you put the design of streets, buildings, schools, and hospitals at the same time, and on the same board. Of course, there is a master plan for the pyramids, but where is it? I don't know how to reach an answer. Until he was on a business trip in one of the projects, in the city of Riyadh in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It was the weekend, so he went on a safari with his friends in the desert. One night he was walking with his French friend, who has knowledge of constellations. So he consulted him about a certain star group in the sky, and told him that it consisted of 3 stars. But they are not on the same line, but the youngest of them is a little farther from them. Robert looked at the place his friend was consulting about, and his friend shouted, telling him what's wrong with it? He said to him, I see the pyramids of Giza in the sky. Finally Robert finds the key to solving the mystery, the stars of Orion's belt. Orion's belt is a star cluster consisting of 3 stars, known as Orion's belt. Because it was part of a larger star constellation known as Orion, and represented a strong person, prey catcher. It was at this moment that I gave Robert Bauval a vision. He found that the pyramids follow the pattern of the Orion belt group with amazing consistency, and this explained to him the sizes of the pyramids and the distances between them. Orion's 3 belt stars, scope, Neelam, area, are identical in size and relative luminosity to the 3 pyramids of Giza. A line passes through the center of Najm al-Nitaka and al-Neelam, and the area is a little further. The pyramids of Giza also line passing through the center of Khufu and Khafra, and Menkaure a little further. This remains the unified plan that he was looking for. A stunning revelation, and D was the starting point. Robert Bauval discusses the idea with a number of Egyptologists. So I sent an answer to the director of the Egyptology department, at the British Museum at this time, Dr. Harry James. His response was that the match between the pyramids and Orion was just a coincidence, of course a very frustrating response, but Robert did not despair. And try again with the well-known British Egyptologist D. Edwards, who was enthusiastic about the idea, and encouraged him to continue research. Robert didn't stop at this point, as long as the pyramids of Giza were built on the lines of Orion's belt. Well, why not have other buildings in the style of other celestial bodies? Study the texts of the pyramids. The texts of the pyramids are a collection of the oldest sacred Egyptian texts. It is found in the pyramids of Unis, Teti and a group of other pyramids in the Saqqara region. The texts are written in the inner chambers of the pyramids and talk about the king's transition to the other world. One of the things that caught his attention, while studying the texts, was that they spoke through heavenly water. I mean, as there is a river in the sky, in one of the parts, for example, the text says on the tongue of the king. On another site, the text says. The text spoke of a waterway, curving in the sky, and of the king moving from west to east. In order to dwell among the eternal stars, the ancients considered the stars to be the home of the gods. Many scholars of the Egyptian language saw that what is meant by this winding waterway is the Milky Way galaxy. And what appears as a meandering river in the sky, and can be seen with the naked eye from the surface of the earth on certain nights. There is a very important text in the Hermes, which is that Egypt is an image of the heavens. Most of those who came across this sentence considered that its meaning is metaphorical, denoting beauty and serenity, and so on. But Robert saw that what was meant was a true reflection of the sky, and that Egypt was an image of the heavens in the literal sense, not the metaphorical sense. His studies revealed that Egypt, with its Nile and 7 huge pyramids, all of which belong to the 4th dynasty, is a reflection of the sky. The Nile River is a ground image of the Milky Way galaxy, which represents the celestial Nile. And 7 pyramids on Earth are equivalent to 7 stars in the sky, tracking their size, intensity of brightness, and their relative location from the Milky Way. The Pyramid of Abu Ruwash is equivalent to the Star of a Sword, the 3 pyramids of Giza are equivalent to the Belt of Orion. The Pyramid of Zoya el-Eryan is equivalent to the Star of Bellatrix, and the 2 pyramids of Dashur are equivalent to the 2 stars of Hyades. Thus, what is meant by the text of Hermes remains to be fulfilled: Egypt is the image of the heavens. The ancient Egyptians were particularly sacred. The Orion group, which they called Sahu, and the Poetic, which they called Subdat, because its appearance was linked to the occurrence of the Nile flood, the source of life. From an astronomical point of view, Sirius is associated with the Orion group that appears before him, and doctrinally, the star of Sirius was associated with Isis. And Orion was associated with Osiris, and the Hyades stars were associated with Set, the brother of Osiris and his killer in the well-known myth. This theory leads to a very important conclusion, which is that the pyramids were not built in isolation from each other, as we used to think. But its design put the same mindset at the same time. It was part of a major engineering plan, based on a doctrinal background, cadastral considerations and a very accurate knowledge of the conditions of astronomy. From the first day, he was determined to keep 7 pyramids in these sites, under the umbrella of one project. The design was developed at the same time, but the implementation could take many years, 100 years or 200 years, more or less. This is not the problem. So the idea is that King Khufu decided to build a pyramid on the Giza plateau, and after him, Khafre decided to build his pyramid next to it, and so on. And everyone designs and builds a pyramid in the shape and dimensions that he sees. This is a story that is clearly not true. The idea that the curved pyramid was in a mistake, in its corners, occurred during construction, so they built the red pyramid on its side, and it is also clear that it is not correct. As we go through the episodes, we will see that there is no such thing as a mistake or a coincidence. And the things that are recorded in the books as mistakes in design or construction are not mistakes, but they were designed to be in this way. Indeed, it was intended that he would keep 2 pyramids in Dashur. The red pyramid is equivalent to the star Aldebaran, and the curved pyramid is equivalent to the star Al-Ain in the constellation Al-Tor. The star Aldebaran is identified in the literature as a red giant, because over millions of years, the hydrogen in it turned into helium. This transformation was accompanied by a significant rise in temperature, which made its surface turn red. Do you think it is a coincidence that the pyramid equivalent to the red star Aldebaran is inferior to the rest of the pyramids? It is built of reddish limestone, hence we called it the Red Pyramid. Of course, I am not afraid that it is a coincidence, and that everything was subject to careful design. After a long research into the contents of the pyramids and their relationship to the stars, Robert published his theory in an archaeological scientific journal, called Discussions in Egyptology. And he saw that he had done what he had to do and linked the relationship of the pyramids to the stars, and decided to stop at this point. But a very small note will open the door to discover what is greater. The age of the pyramids.